taught at a high school on the south side of town for a handful of years. In that time, I'd heard several rumors of everything from disembodied voices to doors opening and closing on their own to faculty members feeling watched as they left campus at the end of a long day. Hell, I'd even seen security footage of a box at the school district's technology storage move on its own. But that's a story for another time. This incident forever changed my view of the school, which became my second home in my tenure there. A couple of years after I came on board as a new digital media instructor, I also became the head of the school's yearbook program. Along with an avenue to express my creative side came long hours after school putting together all the work done by the students in my yearbook club. It was not uncommon for me to stay long past the final bell, sometimes leaving as late as 10 in the evening. My classroom was situated at the end of the hallway that housed most of the Kate classes. To be completely honest, I too had occasionally felt like I was being watched on those late nights. The feeling would kick in at exactly 9:03 on the dot every night, but for the most part, I shrugged it off and chalked it up to the slight anxiety most people might feel being cooped up in a large, mostly empty building. I say mostly empty because along with myself was the custodial crew, usually a team of 2. On this night, Mary and Sam happened to be on duty. Mary would usually come by and greet me, half muttering about burning the midnight oil. I was always grateful to hear Mary's voice. It often broke that unspoken tension I so desperately tried to downplay. It was the evening of an ordinary April day, which meant deadlines were creeping up with deceptive speed. On this night, I chose to stay later than I had originally planned to try and finalize the yearbook. I was completely engulfed in my work when my eyes darted to the right-hand corner of my iMac. 9:03 p.m., the clock read. As soon as I became cognizant of the time, I felt that familiar chill start to creep slowly up my spine. On this day, it came with an intensity I had never before felt. I took a sip of the energy drink I had with me and nervously set the can back on my desk, shrugging off this increasingly uncomfortable presence. I managed to subdue the spindly tendrils of whatever irrational fear attempted to grasp my mind and dove back into my work, determined to complete the task at hand. What felt like an eternity had passed when I glanced up at the digital clock on my screen. I was profoundly disturbed to see the numbers 9:03 staring back at my face, as if to laugh at my attempts to ignore their significance. Simultaneously, I heard a creak coming from the hallway which made me jump back in my seat, sliding my office chair a ways away from my desk. I tentatively got off my chair, taking note of this odd, heavy presence that filled the air. There seemed to be some sort of miasma hanging around my room, making it hard to breathe normally. I made my way to my door, which was a solid 15 feet across from where my desk sat. The room was maddeningly silent, so much so that I could make out the low, droning hum of the fluorescent tubes and the lighting fixtures overhead. I reached for the door handle, unsure whether I should investigate the cause of the creak. I shook off those pesky tendrils which threatened to completely immobilize me, and felt the cold aluminum door handle come in contact with my palm. I opened the door and peered into the hallway to find the source of the creak. To my relief, it turned out to be Mary, carting along an industrial mop bucket, which I'm sure was about as old as I was. She looked up at me and shot up a friendly wave. I returned her gesture, turned back into my classroom, and let out a huge sigh of relief. I sat down in my chair, took another swig of my energy drink, threw on a playlist, and found myself completely free of whatever fear had held me in its grasp only moments ago. As I selected my go-to playlist, I took a quick glance at the clock and saw the time read 9:53 p.m. Man, I guess the continuous editing is starting to take its toll on my eyes, I thought to myself as I rubbed my eyes and placed my hands back onto the keyboard. I sank back into my work, tuning out my surroundings and getting lost in my crunch time playlist. This is where everything gets a little hazy with regards to the time that had elapsed since I sat back down to work again. Let me explain. I could have sworn I had listened to roughly 5 to 6 songs. I was in the middle of Strawberry Fields Forever when I began to feel the ominous presence once more. This time I could feel someone watching me, as if they were standing right across my desk behind my computer. I stopped in the middle of my work and froze completely, hesitant to look up from my screen for fear I might see someone or something. I slowly lifted my gaze up across my screen, certain I would see some sort of horrible, twisted, demonic face. My eyes froze on the digital clock once again, 9:03 p.m. At that exact moment, the door to my classroom swung wide open, causing me to jump from my seat. I looked to the door, and standing across from me was Mary. I was shocked to see her visibly shaken. Her face was pale as she gasped for air, sobbing uncontrollably. "Mary, what's going on?" "Mr. Gutierrez, are you okay?" "Am I what? What do you mean, am I okay?" I saw him. Dios santo." She made the signal of the cross as she uttered the words. She took a second to collect herself and made her way to my desk and was finally able to speak coherently. "I'm sorry, Mr. Gutierrez, but I was mopping down the hall. I felt a horrible presence watching me. I looked up and saw a man walking into your room." "A man? What do you mean? There's no one else here besides me." As the words left my mouth, Sam walked into the room. "Buenas noches, Mary. Mr. Gutierrez." He froze mid-sentence when he saw Mary's expression of pure terror. "Por Dios, ¿qué te pasa, Mary?" Sam made his way to both of us, muttering some Spanish curses under his breath. I was telling Mr. Gutierrez I saw someone or something walk into this room. It looked like a tall black shadow of a man." She stopped mid-sentence, staring wide-eyed in the direction where Sam had just emerged from. I followed her gaze and laid eyes upon something that to this day makes my skin crawl. Standing outside the door to my classroom was a humanoid silhouette. The shadow man floated a solid 2 feet from the ground. A translucent coat hung where his lower legs should have been. My eyes climbed up the spectral figure, unable to completely make out what they were seeing. The figure danced and morphed like a mirage, similar to seeing the heat rise off the road on a hot Laredo summer day. Mary let out a horrified shriek and clutched at Sam's arm. The shriek caused me to look away from the figure momentarily and over to Mary, who had her eyes shut, mouthing out what I could only believe were prayers. I quickly turned back to the doorway in time to see 2 hints of red where the eyes should have been slowly start to fade. The figure opened its mouth wide, grotesquely wide, releasing a piercing shriek that caused all 3 of us to clutch our ears. The lights flickered, then silence. The heaviness that hung in the room only seconds ago all but vanished. We looked around at each other completely dumbfounded. I remember muttering something about being late for dinner as I hurriedly packed my hard drives into my laptop bag. I didn't bother trying to save my work. I left my classroom, uncertain of what I had just experienced. I ran to my truck, fumbling frantically with my keys. I hopped in, started the truck, and sped away, ignoring the speed bumps in the school's parking lot. From that day forward, I made it a point to leave campus before 9:03 p.m.